Welcome back to the Crest Podcast, the show where we talk with fractional leaders in the startups world about strategies, stories, and solutions for growing your business. I'm Alex, your host. Today, we're tackling a topic that hits home for many seed stage founders. How do you execute a strong marketing strategy without hiring a full-time chief marketing officer? Enter the concept of the fractional CMO. To help us explore this, I'm joined by a fractional CMO, Rachel, from Crest Collective, with over 2 decades of experience in guiding early-stage startups. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Alex. Excited to be here.
Let's dive right in. Let's face it, most seed-stage startups can't afford a full-time CMO, and even if they could, it's often overkill. But many founders hire junior talent or rely on advisors. Why do you think this leads to such scattered marketing efforts?
Great question, Alex. Startups need more than just tactical execution. They need strategy too. Junior marketers can be great executors, but often lack strategic experience. Advisors, on the other hand, might have great ideas, but aren't around to do the actual work. So you end up with either a lot of activity without clear direction or a great strategy with no execution.
So where does a fractional CMO come into play here? What's their unique value?
A fractional CMO bridges that gap. We bring strategic leadership, but are also willing to roll up our sleeves. We don't just say you need a brand strategy. We help create it. We don't just suggest running a marketing campaign. We design, execute, and measure its success. That kind of hands-on, high-level guidance is key for startups.
That sounds great in theory, but how does it play out in practice? Can you give us some concrete examples of what you've done in your role as a fractional CMO?
Absolutely. For instance, I've conducted brand workshops with founders to craft unique brand identities and then worked with designers to execute the visual elements. At trade shows, I've stood at the booth talking with customers to understand their needs and then fed that back into product positioning. I've also developed go-to-market strategies, built content roadmaps, optimized tech stacks, you name it. It's about filling gaps and adapting to what each startup needs.
Some might argue that this is a temporary solution, that as soon as the company grows, they need a full-time CMO anyway. What's your take on that?
That's a valid point, but it's not about replacing a full-time CMO. It's about making sure that when the time comes, the company is ready for one. By the time the need for a full-time CMO arises, the foundation is already strong. You've already tested strategies, built a basic marketing team, and optimized your efforts. The next hire is more impactful because the groundwork has been laid.
You mentioned content strategy and creation earlier. How does a fractional CMO typically approach that, and why is it so important for seed stage startups?
Content is about building trust, demonstrating value, and communicating your brand's voice. As a fractional CMO, I don't just say, create a blog. I map out a content calendar, recommend channels, and collaborate with creators to ensure consistency. It's not just about getting content out there, but making sure it aligns with your overall strategy and resonates with your target audience.
Speaking of resonance, customer segmentation is another area you highlighted. Why is it critical, and how do you handle it?
Without knowing who your core customers are, you risk burning resources on scattered marketing efforts. I work closely with founders to define their ideal customers using data and customer feedback. This way, we prioritize outreach and tailor messaging for maximum impact.
What about startups that might be skeptical of the cost? How do you justify your value as a fractional CMO?
Hiring a full-time CMO early can be a financial burden. Junior marketers, while cheaper, can lead to costly mistakes. Fractional CMOs are cost-effective because we offer high-level expertise without the overhead of a full-time hire. It's about making every dollar count by creating strategies that drive growth and ensuring the team is empowered to execute effectively.
It sounds like you wear many hats, Rachel. For founders listening who might be interested, how does someone like you get started with a new company?
It's all about diagnosing the gaps. I might start by auditing existing efforts, having strategic sessions with the leadership team, or even standing in trade show booths to engage directly with customers. The goal is to blend high-level strategy with hands-on support wherever the company needs it.
At Crest Collective, you also help connect startups with fractional CMOs. What's your advice to founders considering this route?
My advice is to be clear on what you need. If you're missing strategic leadership but need someone who can also execute, a fractional CMO can be invaluable. Look for someone who aligns with your goals and is willing to get their hands dirty, because that's what it takes to succeed at the seed stage.
Great insights, Rachel. Thanks for joining us today and giving us a closer look at the value of fractional CMOs for startups. If our listeners want to learn more, they can check out Crest Collective.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It's been a pleasure.